What's going on, people? Fame Entertainment here from level1gaming.com. And today we have a special episode of the Double XP podcast for you guys. We are talking with the developers from Winterborn Games. The floor hugger, as you know, is really into anything that's fun. And she came to me and said, hey, I played this game. I want you guys to check it out. And was like, well, we need to talk to him now because you like the game. We're very interested in the concept of what's going on. So today we have a special two guests for you guys. And I messed up on that. We'll edit it later, Hugger. We can go back because I'm not very good at things like that. Or we might just keep it because this is what we do at level 1. We make mistakes and we push forward.
Exactly.
So,
let's introduce our guest here, the head of the studio, Kent. Just tell the people about yourself.
My name is Campbell. I've been doing games for a long time now. I feel old. I think I'm like 11 years or so. I've done indie. I actually used to work at Infinity Ward on Call of Duty, so I've done AAA. And I kind of now have settled back into the indie space where I'm running our tiny little 5-man operation, working on kind of our own indie thing now.
That is... I did look you up and I was like, this name sounds very familiar. I've heard of you somewhere. And then I was like, Call of Duty. The social media...
I pop up from time to time.
You're pretty cool. And you're pretty... Don't say you're old and don't say you're not. You're cool.
I like this whole group. I just gotta say, I really like all of you guys.
Thank you. We work hard to be... is it funny? Is that what the people say we are?
I don't think we're funny. I think people just like to laugh at us and say it's with us, you know, for the most part.
There's a lot of different reasons you can be entertaining, and it's usually not the one you think it is.
That's a quote right there.
The social media man himself, Trevor, the one who reached out to us about the game. Tell everybody about yourself and what you do.
So yeah, I do all the social media, all the PR, everything on the Winterborn side. I have not been in games very long. This is my first game, so there's that. I was a local pro wrestling manager for a little bit around these parts, and I used to before they shut it down. I was like a Radio Shack manager, but once they shut it down, I went back to school and now I'm helping Kent make a game. So, and hopefully we can get it out there to people, and hopefully people enjoy it.
Oh, I gotta say, I played the demo multiple times now, and I've loved it every single time. There is a Kickstarter, guys. It will be in the description. It's also in the article I wrote, which also will be in the description. It looks like you guys are almost halfway funded.
Yeah,
just about.
There.
So tell us about the game. What is it?
Go for it. PR it away, man.
Yep.
Putting me on the spot. Okay. So our game is called Externus Path of the Solari. It's actually based on a tabletop game, a homebrew tabletop game that we played. I started playing back in 2005. When I was first trying to go to community college. But I know Kent and some of the other guys that played in high school and stuff like that. So it was a game that went for a long time. A lot of the characters in the game are based off of our characters. But we wanted to turn that game. We love the story so much. It's been something that we've talked about with other people for years. Like anytime anybody brought up tabletop gaming or something like that, we would always talk about the stories from our adventures during our game. And we wanted to turn that into a video game for years now. And basically once Kent was like, hey, I'm ready to make an indie studio, we all pretty much jumped on board to do it. But it's going to be a tactical turn-based RPG. We take a lot of inspiration from Final Fantasy Tactics, Fire Emblem, games like that. And yeah, we're super passionate about it. One of the biggest things I think for our game is the death mechanic in it, is that we do encourage having permadeath in it, but in a unique way. We want death to actually matter, and for people to not feel like they need to reload a save because a character dies. The character dying could have both negative and positive consequences throughout the story based on how they affect the other characters in the party. So I think that's probably our most unique, the most unique facet of the game. So anything you want to add there, Kent?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. That was good for being put on the spot.
So what's that process like? Because we see it a lot, like with D&D tabletop being made into video games. We're seeing it now with Cyberpunk 2077 tabletop being made into video games. What is that process like actually going from tabletop to like video game?
I think kind of the hardest part or the biggest change I think going from it is we didn't want to just wholesale bring it over, right? Like, so our original game is heavily inspired by D&D, but it had a much simpler rule set because we just didn't feel like we needed to flip through 20,000 books anytime someone rolled a die. It kind of slowed everything down. It's way better than it used to be, but back when we were doing this, I think it was like the second edition or Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So it was like everything had 20 books and just it was really complex. So we simplified that, and so over the course of developing this game, we kind of figured out what was important to us and what wasn't. So the story, kind of the actions and the reactions, and just kind of letting it go really free form. And obviously, unless you're either a master of AI or a huge studio, you can't really bring that experience wholesale to video games because there's no way you can really be like, okay, do whatever you want and we'll somehow react to it. So we were trying to figure out how do we fit this into a video game format. And a lot of us played tactical RPGs forever, and it just, what we really felt was the core of the gameplay when we were playing the pen and paper version was kind of how you use each character's, their special abilities, their strengths and weaknesses, and kind of how you would use them together to defeat the enemy. So at its absolute core, that was really what we were looking at. And so it really lent itself well to turning it into a tactical RPG because we could still feature a lot of that same kind of feel, even if it was really different. And then going from there, it was just a matter of we had, tons of maps and papers and characters and story and everything from the original. And it was kind of, we started off just wholesale bringing that stuff over into the game. And then really, really, really early on in our kind of prototyping phase, we kind of saw what did work, what didn't work, what we needed to change, what made more sense as far as being in a digital format. And we kind of just adapted it from there, kind of tweaking until it felt good.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask, seeing how this game is born from tabletop, what is your core target demographic? Is it tabletop players, get them to play a game, or you really looking to get into, all right, these are people already gamers that are into tactical RPGs? Is that like a core demographic that you guys are targeting with this game?
I think it's probably targeted more towards people that are already into tactical RPGs than those that are not. But I think, the perfect core would be the crossover between the two, people that enjoy tactical RPGs and people who have ever played any kind of pen and paper game. We did bring some things over there. In the demo, we had a very, very small section of it, but we actually have kind of outside of the battles, we have an almost choose your own adventure style sections that we kind of present as if it's a book. And that's kind of trying to pay homage to the original, format of the game. And so people that are still really into that more so than the tactical RPG, hopefully they'll still be able to enjoy through the game and experience the story, especially if they want to, tone down the difficulty to be something really, really simple and just kind of get through the story. Then they can focus more on those parts of the game where you're kind of it's a lot more similar to the pen and paper style than the tactical RPG.
Do you think that people who are normally into the pen and paper style or into tabletop things, do you think this style of game will transition well if they decide, okay, maybe I want to play an actual video game like this? Do you think it'll transition well for them if they're not really into gaming like the tactical RPG players are?
We're hoping so. We have had a little bit of play. So my wife, for example, has never really been into tactical RPGs, and she played through the demo a couple of times and enjoyed it. Obviously, she's probably a little biased because she thinks she'd be like, "Oh, hey, that sucked. I never want to do that again." But if she wasn't totally lying, then it seemed to work pretty well for her. We tried to make it. Our goal is to make it easy enough to get into, but then a lot of kind of the optional content, so the side quests and that type of stuff, that's when you can really flex your tactical muscle there. If you so the main story should be difficult enough to get through without kind of ripping your hair out. But if you really want to push it, you can do some of the side quests. You can try some of the more difficult things to do. So a great example is the demo. Where it's not that tough to beat the game, to play through, like especially with the main characters. What can be a little more difficult is actually getting all the way through with all three characters alive. And you'll actually see a little bit of difference there. So we wanted to kind of layer it to give people the options. If you're not a tactical RPG fan, hopefully you can still enjoy it.
I was just gonna say that, like, the demo couldn't keep him alive. Trevor gone immediately. I was like, oh. But and I also tried to force in the last battle. I played it multiple times with the different options. It didn't feel unfair because I know some games like Final Fantasy Tactics beats me every time, but this felt fair. It felt is well programmed, kind of the thing. It it didn't feel like it was going to beat me into the ground and make me not play, kind of like a Dark Souls where I never get past one boss. This felt fair. It felt honest. It felt bad for Trevor, but it was his time to go. And I like
we have had a lot of fun killing Trevor.
Oh, I can imagine. You guys. It's okay. We love you. In the campfire scene after, where you're bonding with your team, they talked about you. Don't worry, Trevor. You're there in spirit.
That's true.
But I am interested to see how your party dying will affect the story in the end.
I'm sorry that if I keep jumping line, all these questions. I know Hug haven't had that question. I apologize. I'm sorry. So I know I talked to a lot of different developers who always have an attachment to certain characters in the game. Maybe it's because they maybe modeled that character after someone in their family or themselves. Is there like a character in your game you say, okay, this is the character I'm attached to the most?
You want to take that one? I know you got one.
So for me, the character, he's not in the demo, but it's the character name is Amante Steele, and that's because that was my character when we were playing the tabletop game. So that's the character that I had for the longest time during the time we played, because I think I had a couple characters before that, but Kent's tabletop game was pretty hard. So your first couple characters died real fast until you kind of like understood that it was a hard and vicious game. So yeah, but Amante was kind of the first one that kind of stuck around and was actually involved in a lot of the story. We do change a bit of his origin and how he gets thrust in to the actual video game version because it makes more sense that way. But yeah, he's the one I'm attached to because obviously it was my character, and it's actually really cool to see the character art that our artist Moody has done for him already, because it's like, well, that's the character that I envisioned in my head, and I'm not an artist, so there's no way I could ever draw it beyond a stick figure. So
same here. Don't feel bad.
Yep.
Don't feel bad.
The art style.
I can't do anything art wise.
beautiful.
That's why we have the full hugger here. She's our artist, and yeah, I can't draw a stick man either. So don't feel
What
bad.
made you guys settle on the storybook style? Because the art is amazing and beautiful, and the 3D environments are gorgeous as well.
Thank you. I'll tell Moody. He'll love to hear that.
So beautiful.
So we really wanted to do something a little unique because I'd say 75%, if not more, of these games that come out are anime style, and it's just like it's huge in that crowd, and like there's just a lot of those, and I love that style. I grew up, I watched a ton of anime. I still like anime, but it didn't quite capture the world like we wanted it to. And then so we kind of played around with a few different ideas, and we wanted to really again, it went back to the kind of the tabletop origins where we're like, this is a kind of a high fantasy style. So we looked into that a little bit. We looked into more of a comic book style. And the way we actually settled on it is we were just kind of scrolling through Moody's Instagram, and we came across a sketch that he had done of like some completely unrelated thing a while back. And we're like, boom, there it is. Like, that's exactly the style we want. It was kind of a blend of a lot of different things. It was somewhere between comic book, kind of fantasy storybook, even a touch of anime. And so that also lent itself to the idea of we're kind of presenting the whole thing as a storybook. Like, it's really a tale that is told to people. And it worked really well. And our artist Moody is damn good at doing that style. So
Yes.
Thanks.
It's beautiful. Like I can't get over just the opening cinematic there. It's just like, oh, okay. And then when you get to the game and you see the characters, and then you do the storybook section where you can choose your kind of own way. Oh, beautiful. I couldn't get over it.
Again, I love talking to you people.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you a question that's a little bit off the beaten path a little bit. So you previously had experience with the AAA machine, right? Everybody knows about AAA machine. So how is it going from that big AAA machine to something to the indie style? Because I mean, it has to be like a drastic change from big production, lots of staff, custom also big deadlines you have to meet. Like, how is the transition from the AAA machine to the indie scene?
Like you said, it's massively different, and there's good things, there's bad things. Some of the things that I really am happy about now, so I guess the pros would be, number one, I'm not just a little cog in that machine, right? Like, one thing that really drove me nuts about the AAA thing was there's just so many people working on it and so many different parts that I was, for Call of Duty, the whole time I was in Infinity Ward, I was in either UI or I was in network programming. And all I did was like focus on that little tiny bit. So I had really no idea what was going on in a lot of other sections. And that always really bothered me because I like to see the project as a whole and kind of be able to see that. So switching to the indie side, I can see that. Like, I know everything that's going on. I know what everybody's working on. I know when things are coming online and can kind of make sure they connect. So that was really big for me. And then there's also something just kind of amazing about bringing, like, this is much more meaningful to me than the AAA stuff I was working on. Like, I absolutely loved Call of Duty. I loved working on it. It was really cool to be able to go, I just did this feature and they're going to be however many millions of people are going to see this. Like, even my mom is like, oh, I know what Call of Duty is. Like, not a gamer at all. So that was cool. But now it's like, I did that. I just did the feature and moved on to the next one. But here, especially really early in development, I got something showing up on screen and I'm just like, oh my God, it's the most, I'm the best programmer in the world, like. So that's been really cool. And then kind of the downside, the flip side of that is, because we're such a small team, we have no budget. We have, we really are doing the kind of stereotypical indie dream where we're all working out of our basements. Like, I'm sure you can see mine's half storage room if you can see that behind me. So like,
we definitely get it and respect the hustle, respect the grind, because we're indie publication, so we're all working out of our offices and bedrooms. So I completely understand and respect the grind.
Yeah, man, support the indies. That's what it's all about, I think. But the downside then just being, I can't if I have a problem, I can't go to anyone like down the hall and be like, hey, I have no idea how this works. Help me. I'm just like, I'm at the mercy of the internet or kind of beating my head against the keyboard until I finally get it figured out. And I'm sure Trevor can attest to that and the rest of the team, where some days I'm like, hey guys, what's going on? I love working on this game. And other times I'm like, I want to kill myself. I hate everything.
Yeah, it's either one or the other. Yeah.
It's so funny because it sounds like the couple of weeks before we launched our site, and me and Hugger was trying to build everything together, and we was like, "There's no one to help us. We just wipe the whole site,
burn it down."
Like I just think it's awesome that you can be in different spaces of the gaming world and still sort of have the same backstory on how your progress was, coming up and things like that. So I mean, I never got to work at a IGN, a GameSpot like you did with with Infinity Ward, but yeah, I think kind of interesting, man. And that's one of the reasons why I have so much love and respect for independent teams, independent developers, because when you speak to them and you speak to them about their game, it's always a different feeling because you can tell that they have more of their heart into it than it is when you're working on a big AAA machine, because at that point you're kind of just doing work. You're doing your part for work, but when it comes to the indie scene, everyone's like, all right, this is mine, this is my baby. I'm gonna die before I fail on this project. So like I said, I have nothing but respect for indie teams and developers, because you guys actually bust your butt and you actually care about your product and others' enjoyment of your product. So I just want to make sure I get that out there.
Exactly.
Nothing but respect for you guys.
Exactly.
Indies always know what they're talking about because y'all live and breathe whatever game you work on.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's hard to get away from work. As I go upstairs. That's my suddenly I'm at home now.
Oh god, yeah. I can only imagine. So you guys are using Monogame Framework, but you're also using your own custom engine. Tell us about this engine, because I mean, I don't know the Broadsword Engine. Never heard of it.
Nobody knows it because I made it up, and I won't lie. The entire reason that it's called Broadsword is so that I could say BS in front of everything. So every single class is like, this is a BS model. This is a BS particle system.
I like the way you think.
Because I'm super juvenile, apparently. I never grew up.
Yeah, it looks like Pink is the me of that group. That's what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, because Dallas will do the exact same thing, and it's just like, boy, why?
You gotta entertain yourself. I'm staring at code like 24/7. I gotta make myself laugh. Nobody else is gonna do it. So,
but why? Other than the name, other than the obvious, why not go for something already established, something people already knew how to use?
So to be perfectly honest, the reason for it is kind of in our original planning stages. I'm a realist, and a huge number of indie games studios, they fail. Like, we could bust our ass for 3 years, develop this game, release it. It could, even if it's the best game in the world, like, it's so hard to get attention in the indie space because there's so many of them now. We could sell to 20 people, and maybe we can't continue. And to be honest, like, one of the big reasons, this is more for me personally, is I learn so much more kind of developing this from the ground up, like using the Monogame framework. Like, I'm going into areas of code that I really haven't ever done before. Whereas if I was using Unity or Unreal, some example, what I would be learning there is more how to use Unity or Unreal versus really learning the kind of nuts and bolts and guts of kind of what I'm doing. So it's a little bit of a selfish reason for me, but I don't know. I've been programming for a while. It's really important for me to kind of get in there and know every little tiny bit of this game, because it's important to be able to make it do what I want, how I want it, not necessarily how it's meant to be done in a different engine.
So you said something interesting, and I kind of want to point us towards Trevor. You talked about how the indie space being so big and so many indie developers. I guess what kind of pressure or tactics are you using, Trevor, to try to help, get your name out, getting your studio out there, getting the Kickstarter out there? Like how is that for you?
I mean, it's basically just throwing a bunch of stuff at a wall and hoping somebody sees it. It's a whole lot of email, like find email addresses, find websites. I mean, there's just so much out there that like I didn't even know existed, that it's like it's so hard to know where to really put all your effort towards. And it's basically just trying to cast as wide of a net as I can and email as many people as I can and be like, hey, this is our press release. Please pay attention to us. That sort of thing. Essentially that. And I mean, we've done some other stuff to try to at least build a little bit of an audience before we announce stuff. We started a podcast where we talk about our game. We've interviewed some other game developers about, it's called How to Build a Game Studio. So it's basically our journey on how we built our game studio and that sort of thing. And we've talked to a few other developers on how they built their game studio and stuff like that. So it was kind of, it was used as a way to hopefully get people to know us a little bit before we had something to talk about. And hopefully like us and then want to play our game in the long run. So it's just trying to do a little bit at a time. I mean, that's why we appreciate anybody that'll pay attention and that'll write any kind of words. I mean, we all appreciate that, and it's really cool to see. And I think we're slowly but surely getting more of an audience. Especially with the Kickstarter and everything. So hopefully we get funded. But if nothing else, we'll at least gain more of an audience.
Yeah,
exactly. To piggyback and going back to Kent.
That's a lot of piggybacking.
So, yes.
I can't follow. I'm so confused.
So to go back to the point, we're still talking about, how big the indie scene is. And to also talk about, how you don't have the person to go down the hallway and say, hey, how do you do that? Is there a collection of maybe other indie developers that you can reach out to and say, hey, you have any ideas about this or you have any solutions to this? Is there like a collection, like a what am I looking
like
for?
resources?
Resources or like the like I could call Dallas, hey Dallas, I don't know how to do this instrumental. What do I need to do? A hugger, hey, I don't know how to draw a circle properly. How do I draw? Like, you guys have that in the indie community, like in other developers that you can lean on a bit?
Actually, I mean, since starting, I've been kind of like Trevor said, slowly but surely building up a network of connections. And it's a little different when it's really technical. And admittedly, we did this to ourselves by doing a custom engine. Whereas I can't always go out and be like, here's my exact issue and my exact thing. I need to know what's up. But I got to say the mono game community are just amazingly helpful and supportive. So as far as kind of like tech side stuff, I usually go with those guys because while the engines we built on top of mono game are very different, kind of a lot of the core is the same. And those guys do a really good job of kind of explaining the full problem and figuring out exactly what's going on versus a lot of times if you just go to like random website XYZ, like for coders, it's just like, oh, try this function. I don't know why it works, but it does.
Oh,
whereas, like that doesn't help me for the next time I run into an issue. But these guys have been great. And then aside from that, like for less technical stuff, there's just a lot of little communities. Like I'm on a Discord channel, on a couple of just kind of random forums here and there that I've just kind of been finding as I make new connections and are talking to people. They're like, oh, hey, I found this a while ago. So it's just kind of like this almost word of mouth building up of the community and kind of the resources I have at my disposal to figure out issues.
Nice.
Okay.
It's nice to know that there's people looking out for each other, even in a small space. Because sometimes I just recently played this one game. He's a one-person development team, and it's like I kind of worry about people that do that. It's like, do you have a team behind you, like people that you can reach out to, even though you're working on it by yourself? So it's like, it's nice to see that there is people out there that actually do take the time and do care and do want to help, and they're not out there fending for themselves and out to the wolves.
I think even in the trip when I was still doing AAA and indie, like there's a lot of time fans of certain companies make it seem like they don't get along, but like I don't want to say never. I have almost never met another game developer who is anything but awesome and supportive and helpful, because like we are all going through the same thing. We are all struggling. We're bleeding, we're sweating, we're crying. It's not an easy thing to do. Making games, covering games, reporting on games, like all of this is tough, but we all do it because we love it. And 9 times out of 10, if you're talking to anyone, they'll give you the shirt off their back to help you out. And that's one of the reasons I don't ever want to leave the gaming space.
Amen.
So y'all know, well, when I say y'all know, I mean my team. Y'all know I can't like have this conversation with them and not talk about story, right? We gotta hit the narrative.
Yes,
This is our lore nerd.
We talked earlier about like the storybook style, and the opening scene of the demo does a pretty good job of explaining the world and what it is. But for the people that's watching who haven't touched the demo yet, can you kind of like set the tone for us and tell us about like where we are and what we're doing?
So basically, it's tough to cram a lot into a little thing, but the general idea and kind of the main focus is you are playing with a family known as the Steel family, who is comprised of Osmond and his sons Ulrich and Amante, and they are part of an order known as the Soldat Solari. And the kind of creed of this order, the whole reason they exist, is their goal is to keep balance just throughout the world. They're kind of a vigilante order, and they never want any given thing to become too powerful to change the world, to necessarily destroy it. Even if something looks kind of beneficial, they don't want it to be too drastic of a change. And I can't get into exact specifics because it's actually something that gets revealed as you play, but kind of the reason behind this is it's reactionary based on something that happened long, long ago in the story of the world, and kind of the bad effects that came about because of this drastic change. So they're essentially trying to prevent this from happening. And as the game opens up, what is happening is almost exactly this, where there are major changes that are starting to happen in the world. What was originally thought to be just kind of rumors and kind of old wives' tales, so to speak, is 2 gods actually have suddenly died, and no one knows exactly what is going on in the world. They just keep hearing these whispers and these rumors of the god killer, the abomination, this unknown thing that is happening. And so as the game opens up, you're actually tasked with kind of figuring out what is going on, and kind of your end goal is to ascertain whether this is something that needs prevented, whether this is something that should happen, could happen. And then as all this is going on, there's this underlying theme that we really want to push in the game, based around fate and whether or not things are preordained, whether or not you actually have kind of free will of your own, or whether everything and everyone is just kind of a play thing almost. So as you're playing through the game, as you're finding out about this and trying to kind of prevent these major world changes, you're also trying to figure out just how much free will a given person can have when there are so many major factors happening in the world, from gods to supernatural powerful beings to just huge creatures everywhere throughout the world. How much power can one person actually have?
I'm not gonna lie, it's deep. And like, okay, so the way the narrative is meant to unfold, it's sort of like you said, choose your own adventure type thing, and a lot has to go into that. Like, what's the process? Because it's only a few of y'all. Like, who's writing it, and what's the process for it?
Interesting way that we develop, which I don't know too many other teams that do this. And one of the things, so speaking specifically to the story, thankfully a lot of this was already generated kind of through the original tabletop game that we played for years and years and years. So like this game, kind of the entire arc of the story was actually the major arc of our campaign that we played. So a lot of the kind of groundwork has been laid, which has been really helpful. But one thing that we do that we actually, I really think has worked out well, and I'm really happy working with this, is we really focus on this idea of kind of collaborative design. And that stems from the original tabletop game where like, I was the dungeon master, and you know sometimes I would create a story, I would create a little quest, and it would go exactly like I wanted. Sometimes I would create a quest, and this party would kill one of the main characters right off the bat, or they're like, I'm like, hey, you guys should go over and do this, and they're like, you know what, we're gonna go over that way.
Like, nope.
Yeah, and I always liked that. We always had some really unexpected, some fun. Like sometimes it got goofy, sometimes it got serious. But the idea that I didn't create this world completely by myself means that I also shouldn't create this game completely by myself with regards to the story. So we've been trying to make sure everyone gets their opinion. Like we have this skeleton of what is going to happen, but everyone actually designed their own character. Like they're working with Moody, our artist, to make sure that they have kind of they're invested in their own characters. And whenever we get together, we kind of go back and forth with ideas. We figure out what's important. We figure out what we need to change. But it's important everyone kind of gets that opinion in there, which. You know, I think it's led to more interesting characters overall than if one person or two people kind of created it. And so, you know, long answer to your question, but basically it's a really fluid process and it changes a lot as we go. But I think the kind of thing keeping us sane instead of going, oh God, we're never going to finish this, is we have this original roadmap. So we have kind of our start point, we have kind of our end point, and then we kind of have our points in between that we know are like important things that need to happen. And then in between, sometimes we make it up as we go.
That's the way to do it. You know what's crazy? Okay, so I always wanted to play D&D, but I don't have friends. So, and I had this idea in my head that that at one point in my life I was going to write a story, like make a show, like I wanted to make like a little TV show with him, and that the way that the story was going to come together was from whatever campaign that we did, and to hear that somebody done that already with a game is just like.
Well, hopefully it's not a total failure. We can show, man. You can still do it.
I probably will at some point. Like it's sort of inspiring to see y'all coming together on something like that. So there's usually with a lot of people we talk to, there's one or two people fleshing out the narrative. It's this one person with like a conspiracy board up trying to figure out, like trying to figure it out. I think this like is probably the most organic way to put something like this together, and it's going to show.
Sorry,
it's important to us to
keep. Got me.
One day we'll show you the picture of Post-it notes we have on the wall of my basement, or the wall of the basement of my parents' house. We have all these Post-it notes. It is still a conspiracy board, but a lot of people were working on it. So
yeah, basically, whenever we did our initial meeting to where we were planning out the game, essentially, we had to like try to sit back in our memories and remember the story beat by beat. So the cool thing is we have a bunch of friends still in our hometown that played the game, so we could, call them over and like anything we were missing, we could be like, what are we missing here? And like basically between all of us, we were able to piece it all together, and it's all just like in a line of Post-it notes in Kent's parents' basement. So
That's funny.
I just imagine somebody like going down there and seeing all the notes and reading them, and like just with the whole high fantasy thing, there's no telling what they thinking is actually going on.
Probably get a call at some point, if they're going, it's like, so-and-so kills this person finds out about his dark past,
Oh, I'm not ready for all those twists and turns yet. Oh.
I've probably hit my question quota, but I'm coming with another one. Sorry.
You got your questions, ask them.
We hear, as talked to a lot of people, we hear different sides of using Kickstarter, right? We've heard some good, heard some bad. How has you guys' process been so far utilizing Kickstarter? You should have. No. Feel free not to answer that question because we're not doing this live. Feel free not to answer that question. Honestly,
we'll say it. I mean, we've had a lot more issues than I expected.
We hear that a lot.
Yeah, I'll be honest. We expected Kickstarter's been around so long that we expected to go into just this buttery smooth process, but we've run into. I mean, the website was down sometimes. We weren't even categorized as an RPG until like a week and a half into our campaign. So anyone that was looking for RPGs couldn't find us. There's just been a lot of issues like that. And I mean, there's been good. It's still great. We've been able to really build our community. We did not get much support from them, from Kickstarter itself. Like there's this little kind of project you love tag you can get if they're into your game, and it helps a lot because it gives you a lot more visibility.
Yeah,
and we didn't get that. I mean, we're not upset about that because that's up to them. Like they don't like our game.
It's more, it's more we don't understand how one gets that tag and what we could have done differently to actually like live up to that standard of being a project they love. So like it's one of those things where it's like we just want to know so that we can either fix it or do better down the line if we have to do another Kickstarter project. But we don't know. It just all seems like a random thing. Because I mean, if you look at like our numbers and stuff like and compare it to other games that came out at the same time, like it's pretty similar. At least in what we were doing and what other games are doing, yet they have the tag and we don't. We just don't understand like where the difference is there.
Especially with a little more documented.
The reason I ask because I talk to a lot of we go to a lot of different conventions, whether it's PAX South or somewhere. We talk to a lot of developers, and anytime you bring up Kickstarter, you always like,
oh God.
So I'm always interested to hear from people who use Kickstarter how their experience, because I can see it being a great path, to get your name out there and like you said, and build your community, which you guys said you have. I just want to continue the conversation with people trying to say, has the platform gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Did you think you get from it what you got from it? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think the issue that they probably face, and obviously I have no connection or ties, so this is just a guess, but I think they're just so big, and from our standpoint, we're thinking about it kind of in terms of how many games are there, but then if you take a step back and you're like, oh, I forgot about the 20 billion other things that are on there, I just don't think they have as much of like a core kind of here's the video game team. So I think what works in a lot of other spaces kind of doesn't work quite as well as video games. And, it still works. There's still these crazy success stories that happen, but it's just like, I expected it to be a lot more rigid. Like, when you put a game up on Steam, for example, when you put up a game on like the Xbox Marketplace, like it's pretty clear what you're doing. Like you set your tags, you set everything, and like it's very set up for video games. Whereas I think kind of because the platform handles so much more than video games, I think there's some things that make it tough.
I'm gonna be honest, for the longest time, I didn't know Kickstarter for anything besides video games. I guess I never paid attention to nothing else but games. When I think Kickstarter, I think video games.
Well,
And
also,
so
I think
I also
some of
want
the
to ask
biggest
you.
controversies have come from video games being on Kickstarter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is true. So, do
Unfortunately,
you guys like go out to different like conventions, stuff like that? Have you guys started that process yet? Or is that something more down the line to go to maybe a indie focused event like a PAX South, which is more focused on indies than the AAA machine compared to a PAX East or West?
So I was sorry. We've not shown anything from the studio yet, and it's mostly just been because kind of like the time frame. Like we didn't really have anything that we could show up until now, and it was kind of like in between PAXs and with the COVID virus and all that craziness. It's good. There's a lot going down right now, so
Yeah.
kinda, yeah. But we are planning on showing at some point. For personal reasons, I've been to PAX South once. I've actually been to every PAX East because I used to live out in Boston, and so I still fly back out there for every PAX East. A, just to see the show, and B, to meet up with a lot of old friends that are still in the area. But I actually really love PAX. Ironically, even though I live in Seattle, PAX West is PAX I haven't been to yet. So if that makes sense. But I think we will definitely. I mean, budget permitting, because we have all of like $20 and a couple old scratch-off lottery tickets to, that's our budget. But we would like to show.
So much like us. All right, guys, what can we afford this week?
Do we want to? Yeah,
We got
exactly.
piggy bank, but when we shake it, it don't make sound. So
yeah, pretty much.
You just got to convert all the money to pennies, and then it sounds like you got a bunch in there.
Yeah.
So, no, go ahead. Sorry. I am
Hey.
so sorry. The more we talk, the more. Sorry. I promise I'm gonna shut up. Maybe after this question. So
ask your questions, boy.
Well, it's because he said platforms earlier. He brought up platforms. He brought up going to the Xbox store. So are you guys set on the? I see you guys had on here Steam and the Xbox. You guys set on those being your platforms, or if maybe things change with your maybe with your Kickstarter pledge, maybe you guys thinking about moving over to something that I think would be great on with this type of game, the Nintendo Switch.
So here's the thing. We want to be on Nintendo Switch. We have applied for being on the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo has not gotten back to us. So it's more of a thing where we're waiting for Nintendo approval. We were hoping it would happen sometime during the Kickstarter, so it'd be like, hey guys, we're coming to Switch. As a big pushing point.
It's a pushing point.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously the Switch blew up in a big way, and we want the game on Switch. I mean, without a doubt. It's just we want to make sure that we have that approval through Nintendo before we're actually like, hey, we're on Switch, and then Nintendo's like, nah, we don't like you, get away. And that's like, well, I guess we're not going to be on Switch now, and and piss a lot of people off. So we don't want to do that. So that's kind of where we sit right now. So we're planning on Switch. It's just whether or not Nintendo actually approves us. I mean, I imagine they're probably, with COVID and everything, they're probably backed up more than they normally would be. I mean, you always hear that Nintendo's kind of slow to do a lot of things anyway because they're Nintendo.
Yes.
But I'm sure, being a Japanese company, I know a lot of Japanese companies that completely shut down for COVID and didn't really have a whole lot going on in the background. So I'm sure that's definitely played a part in it. So hopefully sometime soonish we'll know. As far as we would also like to be on PlayStation as well. But there's some technical hurdles that would cost us some money to be able to put it on PlayStation. So that's why we're not technically on PlayStation, but it is one of our stretch goals if we happen to meet that. So,
see that, Dallas? Xbox comes first, brother. Deal with it.
PC
Okay,
comes
so
first.
Power of green, baby.
I mean,
For one,
I
Hugger's
don't.
right. PC comes first. For two, just not mine because it's above this week. For two, the last few devs I've asked about having a game on Switch have said pretty much exactly what y'all said.
Yeah.
Like Nintendo, I don't know what y'all got going on. I mean, we know what y'all got going on right now, but months ago, when I was having this same conversation with Andrew from Terra Nova, he was saying the same thing. He really wants it to be on Switch. They just hadn't got back to him yet. Blah blah blah. I don't know what they're doing, but this is the perfect game if you ask me for Switch. It's one of those games that
yes.
I wait for the Switch release to pick it up.
I would purposely buy the Switch release over any other platform. Like,
yeah, I mean, we definitely agree. We definitely agree. Even though I know, like, me and Kent tend to have a preference towards Xbox.
Yeah, buddy.
But although I did just,
my eyes hard enough.
I did just get a new PC, so I did just get a new PC, so I can lean that way now too, because I have seen the light of the PC master race kind of thing. So I've seen the light. I understand it now, but I still love my Xbox. So
that's a smart.
So yeah.
Man. See that's inside joke. That's why his legs still work. Because
so there's an inside joke with all of us that PC players can't walk because they never see me get up, and I'm like, I'm gonna get you guys. I'm gonna come out to Texas and beat y'all. So are you guys still expecting a summer 2021 launch?
That depends heavily on the Kickstarter. Kind of the main reason that we are running the Kickstarter is to get art support, because our poor artist Moody, there is a lot of content, and he is doing the 2D, he's doing the 3D, he's doing the characters and animations, the UI. I mean, no one else on our team can draw anything except him.
I know that feeling.
So, yeah, it's a lot on his plate, and I mean, man, he is killing it. And huge thank you goes out to Moody for all the work he's been putting in, past, present, and future. But to kind of hit that goal, we really needed some additional art support. If we fail our Kickstarter, we are still planning on going forward because we're all a bunch of stubborn jerks, and we're going to make this game whether you like it or not. But it will probably be delayed a little bit, just simply because Moody can't stay awake 24/7.
True that.
We're looking at ways to fix that, though. So
yeah,
it's open.
Hopefully not too delayed. We're revisiting some things, trying to find where we can find some savings, kind of what's important, what's not. Who knows? We haven't quite figured it out. We'll either maybe cut some stuff out and bring it out as just a free add-on. We'll just try to simplify some stuff, or we'll push it back just a little bit at all. We're kind of taking a second look at our schedule if the Kickstarter fails.
Is it going to be, you just talked about free DLC, I guess you use the word. Are you guys going to, again, this is artist support, is DLC going to be free in the future, or is it going to be like $5-10?
We really hate microtransactions, so we will definitely not be nickel and diming people.
Yeah.
Everything we do will either be free, or if we bring out anything that is charged, it will be like a substantial, like, think old school PC expansion packs. It will not be like, here's a quest for $5. It will be like, here's 20 more hours of gameplay for $5.
Hey, yeah, we're not selling $5 horse armor, all right?
Yeah.
Ooh,
our goal is to give you the game.
I think that's what we need more of, is just sell me a complete game. Don't sell me it in pieces, please. I can't wait for this game. But I think we got to talk about the most important thing, is our resident knight, our little guy, that you made very clear in the demo was not in the demo.
Before asking.
He's so cute. Who is
Everyone loves her.
He's so
cute. Everyone loves our corgi knight, Sir Pendleton.
So cute.
And he's actually based off of, I have 2 corgis, and he is based off of my oldest corgi. Her name is Dovahkiin.
Dope name.
Strong name.
We couldn't quite call him Dovahkiin for risk of Bethesda coming and suing the shit out of us, but
Yeah.
but yeah, we pretty early on we decided, you know, a lot of these types of a lot of games, a lot of tactical RPGs have the kind of, well, actually even less tactical RPGs, but a lot of RPGs have their kind of cute, fun mascot character. So Dragon Quest has slimes, Disgaea has like the Prinny, you know, like there's just a lot. And so we were going through, we were making all of our characters. We got kind of the major ones we needed for the plot. Sir Pendleton actually wasn't in the original game, but he kind of, we were thinking about, we wanted to bring in A, some more non-human characters, and B, some kind of just like really fun characters that would interact in different ways with our other characters. And Sir Pendleton kind of got born out of just some going back and forth. And one of the big things we really like about him is he has to use spears because no other weapon would work because his arms are so short. So he only uses polearm weapons because, you know, corgi small arms, like
Just so cute.
and it's also important to us. I don't think we've showed it too much, but there's a thing about corgi butts. When they walk, they have this kind of like bouncing corgi butt thing.
Yep.
And he is definitely going to have that. That's why he doesn't have pants. He has like chest armor and a helmet. We're like, we need to capture the corgi. But kind of the fun part about him is that as cute as he is, he actually really hates being called cute. He's actually kind of like a gruff, kind of angry person. So another of our characters, Luna, who she can best be described as kind of manic pixie dream girl. She's like super excitable. She's like really into cutesy things, and so she goes nuts over Sir Pendleton, and Sir Pendleton hates the fact that she goes nuts over him like that. So it's been a really fun thing of like kind of making these interactions with these characters who don't necessarily always get along. And that goes back to the campfire scenes that we have earlier. Like those are really a way. Those are scenes that we're focusing on our characters. We really want our characters to be strong and their kind of interactions to be strong because we are moving away. We don't have the kind of traditional job system you see in a lot of tactical RPGs. We actually, like, if a person is an archer, they are an archer. But we did that for a very specific reason, and we want these characters to be really identifiable. We want them to be really well built up and developed. And so a big part of that is how they interact with each other, and kind of like, maybe they don't get along. Maybe they secretly don't get along, but actually love each other, you know? Like, so a lot of that. So we wanted to just have a big, diverse cast for our team. And so that's kind of where Sir Pendleton came from.
I mean, I have to straight up be honest, he's the reason why I decided to take a look and try the demo. Because at first I was like, oh, are they going to go with like, oh God. Now I can't think of the thing. Dragon Age uses them all the time. Oh, they live underground. What is their name?
Dwarves?
Yes. I thought it was going to be another dwarf. I don't know why that was so hard to think of. But then I saw Sir Pendleton, and I'm like, let me give this a try. And then it's like, not in the demo. Like, oh, my feelings, but still let me try.
We wanted to get him in, but it was simply a time constraint. We're actually putting a lot of work into Sir Pendleton and kind of all of his moves and the way he works. And then with the demo, we actually originally it was going to be, you know, the first couple levels of the game, kind of standard demo style. We wanted to give people that were willing to check us out early kind of a little special treat. So none of what happens in the demo is actually going to be present in the game. It's purely just like a really simple kind of intro to our world and kind of like some concepts and some characters and some of the players in the world, and so it just didn't really work to have Sir Pendleton in there because you don't meet him right at the beginning of the game. It just didn't make sense.
Get people interested in the world, but don't spoil it, and then don't have them playing the same thing when the game comes out. Nice.
There you go.
That's the hope. That was inspired by, I think it was Dead Rising 2, I want to say. Before release, they launched like a little $5 kind of prequel to it, and that always really stuck with me. I always really liked the way they did that and wish more people would do that, because I usually don't play the demo of a game simply because it's the first like 3 or 4 levels of the game, and so when I do go to play the game, I'm like, well, been here, done that. I'm kind of bored with this part.
Yep.
So we thought it'd be a good way to kind of break it. It took a little more work, but you know, we were still developing the parts, you know, kind of the core behind the game to be used in both situations, so it wasn't that bad.
Dallas, you got a question? You look like you had something to say.
Oh no, I was just about to be a butthole. Don't mind me. I was gonna say, or I was gonna say, or maybe they just know people are like Sir Pendleton and are like dangling the carrot just to mess with people. Like, you know. Like, guess what?
He cute.
Might be a little bit of truth in there.
You called them out.
Okay, so this is sort of a weird question, and it might be a little bit of a loaded one, but if you didn't know you and you saw, or not even if you didn't know you, if you looking at how far you come from the inception of, hey, let's make a game, to now, how do you think you're doing?
I'm actually curious, since you're a little more on the outside of the dev.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you. Say it again.
Oh, I think Trevor froze.
You.
Oh, I
cut out
did
a little bit there. Yeah.
Thank you, terrible internet. I was just saying, do you have an opinion on that? Because since you're a little more like external to the core development.
Yeah, since I see, yeah. That's hard to answer. I think what we have is good. Like I think our demo is really good. I think our everything that we're showing is strong. Obviously, it's still very early, but I think for showing at that point in time, if I were a fan looking at it, I would be interested for sure. But I mean, it's also the kind of stuff that speaks to me. So obviously, I'd be interested in that aspect. I think it's hard for us to find it's been hard for us to find a larger audience, and I'm not sure if we're at fault for that, or if it's just so hard to find that audience that it's, but at the same time, I think we're doing a good job of chipping away at that. So, because we are, slowly but surely getting followers and talking to more people about the game and stuff like that. So I think we'll get there. I just think it's maybe a little bit of a longer process than even I realized at the time. Especially, I mean, like I said, this is my first game, so it's definitely hard to get your game out there. Especially, we're an unknown studio. We don't have any big names behind us. I mean, Kent's like the biggest name, and he's relatively unknown. So
it's cool. You don't have to butter me up, man.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things where it's harder for us to get people to pay attention to it. So hopefully, through stuff like this, and I mean, we appreciate you guys actually taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you for agreeing to talk to us, because you guys are busy.
We pretend to be, at least.
I think because just from my end, looking at y'all, like y'all doing a really good job, and I'm interested.
Thank you.
And I know, like, even with us, amongst us, like, we are our own biggest critics. And I was sort of kind of wondering how, like, what you saw when you looked at it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like anything I ever put out content-wise, and honestly, I've been in your guys' position too. Back in 2012, I tried to start a website, and it lasted a couple years, and we did okay. But then it got to a point where, I had a couple people along the ride with me, but it got to be too much work. And I was overstressed and overworked trying to do it. So I've been trying to slowly find another way to get into the games industry since. But I know how hard you guys work. And it's really a lot of hard work to try to get your stuff out there and get people to pay attention to it. I mean, yeah, like I get it. So, and I've been there. I was at, PAX East, I want to say 2014, and I did a bunch of interviews there with devs and stuff, just trying to get out there. And yeah, it just, that side didn't work out for me. But at the same time, I learned a lot of skills that I could take to the development side. Like I learned how to, edit video, edit podcasts, like all that stuff. And all that stuff is useful now. And I also learned a lot of those skills, oddly enough, in pro wrestling. Pro wrestling actually took me a lot out of my shell. I used to be, I'm one-on-one, I'm a very shy person. I tend to, sit back, listen, and then, if I know you well enough, we'll have a good conversation or something. But if I don't know you, I might not talk a whole lot. So, yeah, exactly. Like that, but that's how I normally am. But being in pro wrestling, like that kind of got me out of my shell. I started out as a commentator, so it was my voice talking about the guys in the ring and just the teamwork aspect, and then having to stand up in front of a crowd of people that I don't know. I'm actually probably more comfortable doing that than having a one-on-one conversation with someone, to be completely honest. But through that, I also filmed, did multiple camera angles, edited shows and put commentary and post-production and a whole lot of stuff. So like I use those things to gain more skills. And then whenever my Radio Shack store got shut down, I took that opportunity because they here in the US, they have what's called the Pell Grant. So I got a couple years of school for free. So I said, why not take that opportunity to do that? And that's where I also brushed up on more skills so that hopefully I could use them. And that's where I am now. So
Dallas and Hugger, if this don't work, we're going to make a video game.
I'm down.
You just
I'll do the music.
gotta,
Hugger, you do the art.
Oh, God,
you just gotta attach to someone who knows how to program and ride their coattails. So thanks for that, Ken.
Yeah,
So I'm here for.
I have no talent. I consider myself like Phil Jackson. Like Hugger's like Jordan and Dallas and Scottie Pippen. I'm just the coach, like saying, "Hey, run the triangle offense." I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna coach this thing because I can't shoot or pass a basketball.
You're a good coach. So
I see.
what,
Go
Dallas?
ahead.
What?
I was just saying, I see like a lot of parallels between y'all team and ours, and I think like I'll make something, and maybe it's just because I looked at it too long or listened to it too long or whatever. Yeah. I never know what to make of it. I send it out to them thinking, "Oh, this is trash," but tell me what you think anyway, and they'll be like, "Oh, this is dope. This is awesome." Blah blah blah. Like,
yep.
So I'm going to say this: if this don't work, don't move on to something else. Make a game. Like, definitely finish this. Don't let like 2-3 years pass and you decide to like give up on it. Definitely see this through and finish it.
Amen. Because I want
to. As long as like one person wants to play this, and as long as my wife is fine with me being a bum who brings no money into the household, we're gonna make this game.
As long as you clean and do chores every once in a while, I'm sure she'll be fine.
It's all about the wife being okay with it. Sometimes I'm like, hey, Hugger, I'm buying this thing. Just be quiet. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. You won't buy it. I say nothing. And one time I forgot to say I had my headphones unplugged in, and he almost sound like, shut up. Shut up.
As long as the wife don't know. But
that is the truth.
Where can people find you guys? You, Kent, Trevor, your whole team, and where can they find the game if they want to support it?
So yeah, you can go to we're on social media everywhere at Winterborn Games. So if you follow any of those, you'll see all of our many posts, and that'll lead you to the website. We have two websites: one Winterborn Games for just us in general, and then we have the site for Externus, which is externusgame.com. And then on we have a short link for our Kickstarter, which is bit.ly/Externus, just to make it easy if you want to support the Externus Kickstarter. So we appreciate everybody coming out and supporting us, and we appreciate you guys having us on.
Thank you for agreeing.
Of course.
Camp,
was
is there
fun.
anything you want to add to the pot, I guess people say?
Pretty much what Trevor said. Thanks to everyone who ever pays attention to us, and it's equal dose terrifying and exciting to be working on this kind of more personal project versus kind of what I used to do. And what we're always looking to do is build the community up and really do our best to take everyone's feedback into account. So if anyone ever has opinions on the game, you like something, you don't like something, reach out to us, and we actually will pay attention to it, believe it or not.
All their social media, everything will be in the description below. Again, thank you guys for taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang with us, talk about your game, talk about yourselves, and thank you for just keep doing that indie dream and loving video games.
Thank you guys for having us, and thank you for letting me discover I have a very short list of websites that I actually like to read, and you guys are on it now, so I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Definitely, yeah. Like I discovered you guys through this whole process, so I mean, I think that's the awesome part too. Is I also get to discover all these sites that I just wasn't able to before. So it's really cool to see you guys doing your thing, and yeah, I'll definitely be checking you out from now on. So
thank you. Thank you. Dallas Fames, anything you guys want to say?
After the show.
After the show. Okay. Dallas.
But right now, no, I have nothing.
Okay.
Nothing that people should hear, you just.
Well, you guys have watched some original content from Level 1 Gaming. Make sure to follow everybody. Like I said, the Winterborn stuff will be in the description, and we'll see you guys whenever we do something else. Bye, guys.